All right. So, what's going on?
Is everybody ready to start playing Basements and Wyverns, the legally distinct new role-playing game?
From Mages of the Beach.
Yeah.
Damn, I'm down. I had to look up the history of this because I didn't quite know
It's
exactly what it was going
complex.
on. And then
It's
it turns
very
out it's one of those
complex.
things that's been around for a while and is like,
Decades. Decades.
oh, you're doing the thing, aren't you? Okay, Wizards of the Coast had something called OGL.
It's
And
basically making Dungeons and Dragons open source.
essentially, right? And it was an open license that could be used by anyone who wanted to basically make a homebrew D&D campaign. And it basically, yeah, it allowed you to do that, license it that way. Um, and you could resell remixes of existing storylines. You could create new adventures, all sorts of things like that. And with that license, there was a massive growth to tabletop that was seen over the years. That
It's like the single largest reason why D&D expanded the way it did through pop culture.
yeah, they created as yeah again like just an open license that allowed for people to customize and do their own things, and that's also too why I've heard of so many like people doing their twist on a tabletop system. I mean, also like tabletop YouTubing and podcasts and all sorts of things like that have blown up as well with custom games and things because yeah, lots of people want to play in a system that is a more unique setting in a lot of cases, and
Mhm.
sometimes if someone's put a lot of work into that and they want to sell that campaign, they can, right? Um so this OGL license was basically at 1.0 um uh prior to August of last year. And then once that happened, they announced their plans for one D&D, which is going to be a big update to 5th edition.
N- The new D&D. It's the new edition. They're calling it 1, but it's the new edition.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when like AD&D, right? Like you throw the word A, like advanced onto it,
Yeah,
and
there's been
yada
AD
yada.
and D. There's been D&D and then 1, 2, 3, 4,
3E,
5.
5,
We're
4E,
dealing with
5E,
now.
etc. Exactly. So that's it. So this is the next major announcement.
It's
But
essentially 6.
But with that came the announcement that version 1.1 of OGL, the open game license, was also going to be revealed. And the update to version 1.1 was going to invalidate all previous existing OGL
Yeah, it
licensed
makes the old
products.
OGL not valid.
So this was not a like you optional thing. This was a you if you're using this, you must opt in to the new system. Um okay, so what was the new system going to consist of then? Well, the document, which is yeah apparently 10 times longer than the previous document, basically just puts a ton of restrictions on your original like the monetization aspect of it.
Hmm.
um, and the main things it did was it essentially said, uh, you have to give us 25% of whatever you're selling if you're using this. And more or less, we own all of it. And we own all of it, and we have the ability to, without royalties, use it as we see fit anywhere for any period of time for whatever. Um, so you can use our license, but you got to pay us a cut, and also we own it.
So there's a lot of nitty gritty in here that is of importance. So one of the like, why would they do this? Well, Hasbro bought D&D, and Hasbro's the fucking worst hobby company that's ever fucking existed, and looks at D&D and goes, D&D, I think that's a quote, D&D is woefully under monetized. So they're like, well, how can we get more money out of D&D? And they look at a couple things. They look at Critical Role making a shit zillion dollars and not
Mm-hmm.
paying them a dime.
Mm-hmm.
They look at fucking Cyberpunk and Pathfinder having built their entire fucking franchises off of variants of D&D back in the day, and them getting shit all. And it's basically Hasbro looking at D&D the same way that Blizzard looked at fucking Dota and went,
"You are not
fucking
monetizing."
shit.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
Fuck, we fucked that up.
Now, for people who are saying, well, fuck this, guys, just go play Pathfinder. Like, no, Pathfinder, 1st and 2nd edition, 13th Age, Fudge, Traveler, these are all things that are under the OGL license because they were based on D&D to begin with. So these are the types of things that would either have to stop publishing new content altogether or pay the 25%, and also, of course, hand over the ownership entirely of their.
Well, that becomes
their
a legal
campaigns.
question because, like, if they published it under the OGL years ago, you can't retroactively invalidate a contract like that, right? Like, that would be a fight over lawyers.
Is
What
2nd edition not part of OGL? The article I'm looking at says that it is, so that's the only reason why I'm saying it. But
well, it would be under the old OGL, which is when it would be published. The issue would then become anything from, like, the next one on. Like, if Pathfinder wanted to make a new one that's also based off of D&D in some format, then that would be like, basically it stops them from making anything new. Right, so like Critical Role, but Critical Role's been going for years, right? Yeah, but the new season of Critical Role is a new thing that would have to be under the new OGL.
They also do
Wizards
have
of the Coast says they can do it retroactively, but I'm sure the people who run Paizo, who's the Pathfinder people and whatnot, would fight them in court over whether or not they can just retroactively destroy an agreement.
So it seems like the OGL also has specific laws and specific rules for larger creators, and like if you have sales above 750K, for example, you're in a different category of but at the same time, even though there's a different category specified for a certain rule set, it still is like going to apply that ownership stuff to the smaller groups as well. So at the end of the day, essentially everyone who's a Wizards of the Coast like OGL user is basically like pushing back aggressively on this and calling for this is bullshit, because the idea of them kind of going like, well, you're fine to do this as long as you give us your property, is probably the most insane step you could take in the direction of, hey, we're not monetizing, let's try to fix that, and then you take it to like 200%. That's insane.
Yeah, the other thing is that this is kind of like the legality of like copywriting mechanics is so nebulous and not real that like I can see somebody saying like, hey, this system that uses the word Thaco and takes place in Forgotten Realms, yeah, no, you can't do that. But what about Thanaco and I forgot about it zone?
Yeah,
with Drizzle.
Sure. And like when talking about the whole thing with like different scales of creators using the license, like if you make a Kickstarter, if you have a crowdfunded project, you have to pay a royalty on that as well. They have a specific deal with Kickstarter so that it incurs a 20% royalty fee, but anyone else is 25%. But like if you're literally just being like, hey, I have an idea for a thing I want to use, a tabletop I want to create, and I want to gather interest for it, you have to take a chunk of that and go, Wizards owns a quarter of this right off the bat before the project even exists.
Yeah, so somebody in the chat just pointed out something very appropriate, which is you cannot copyright D&D mechanics because they're a statistical interpolation. One out a D20 is just a 5% chance, right? Like you can't copyright the fucking 5% as a mechanic. You can copyright the phrase natural 20,
Sure.
right? If that's been long time associated, blah blah blah. So like all I see, so people are also pointing out Magic is like there's stuff happening with Magic because it's also under Hasbro and it's also happening at the same time. Magic is selling like $1,000 fucking packs of non-legal cards.
Right. Yes. The like collectors thing that I think we talked about before is just
Like just Hasbro's fucking going nuts. Right? And all I see is people like just en masse. Like I see D&D people, like the people with the wall of D&D books, and just going like, there are direct alternatives for all of this that are like comparable, and many of which are just completely free. Hey, you motherfuckers want to start playing GURPS? Go play GURPS. Why not?
Well, whatever the fuck that is. Jesus Christ.
Oh, you're not familiar with GURPS?
No. What does that stand for?
GURPS is the ancient role-playing system that Fallout uses in a modified form. It was supposed to be, but GURPS is too complex, so they toned it down.
Yeah, I have to imagine, like, with the resurgence of pen and paper over the years, and then with Kickstarter pen and paper as well, and all this blow up, you have a thriving, huge community that's in touch with each other that has very little to do with Wizards if you want. Because the part where, where's the exact terminology here? So Wizards of the Coast is granted sweeping, non-exclusive, perpetual, irrevocable, worldwide, sub-licensable, royalty-free license to use that content for any purpose, right? So the lawyers got all of it. They got every aspect of it there. And if you're like, and the thing is, I guess I'm just kind of wondering, I'm like, what would the real world application of having that type of power like be? Like, are they gonna just straight up like lift a character or a complete setting or a thing? And it's like, yeah, if they like an idea enough, they would probably just take that aspect and go, yeah, we're going to roll that out officially in some way, shape, or form. The best ideas of it.
I think
there's no answer.
They say this is under monetized. They canceled every D&D game aside from Baldur's Gate. And
video game.
Yeah, every single D&D video game got canceled except for Baldur's Gate, and I am absolutely certain that the reason why they did not cancel Baldur's Gate is because they could not cancel Baldur's Gate. Because there's an agreement that says that we can put this fucking game out.
Okay. So I may be getting some of the details of this wrong, just fair warning. So, I mean, check out the links to the story and go into it. And, like, I know hashtag OpenD&D is the main place where people are, like, writing in about it and trying to push back against, this idea.
It's crazy because D&D is kind of the perfect copyright test for this kind of thing. They are attempting to assert dominance over the rules of make-believe.
Yeah. Right.
And, like, there are so many
our pretend
obvious,
system.
concrete ways to sidestep that. Like, there's a fucking massive, in-depth FF14 D&D campaign homebrew setting that is top to bottom. There's a Warhammer one. There's a Warcraft one. Like, people are already... D&D players respect copyright the least of almost any group I could ever think of. Yes, Spider-Man is in the bag of holding. Who's gonna stop you at your own fucking basement table?
Did your thoughts are need to pay a 25% royalty if your DM gets too creative?
The only thing more ridiculous than this would be like fucking porn studios trying to fucking copyright your beat off thoughts in your head because it has copyrighted actors in it.
The other bit with the story too is that like this was a leak. I think it came from Gizmodo.
Oh man. So somebody was like, this is bullshit, I'm gonna get this out, and everybody get mad, so they tone it the fuck down.
So yeah, there was a leaked document from December that revealed all this licensing stuff, basically. So this wasn't actually officially put out to begin with.
It's just so frustrating because like I can mentally create the whole scene. Some guy that had literally heard about Dungeons and Dragons 35 minutes ago when he was told to go into the meeting goes, "Why does this Critical Role thing not pay us? We could make so much money if we made them pay us." And then the guy who goes, "People only know about our goddamn thing because of Critical Role. They'll just play some Cthulhu shit or Pathfinder if you do this." And they go, "But no, they won't. No, the brand that I heard about 10 minutes ago, the brand."
So like the bit where it's like, again, the explosion of popularity is based on the fact that people were able to take their own thing and make variations of it, is lost on somebody who is feeling like they have not been allowed to wet their beaks, you know. And when you every time, and like, yeah, and every dollar made that we don't get a quarter out of is money on the table. That's the way to look at it. Plain and simple.
Like the only reason people care about fucking D&D is because for most of our lives it's existed as a set of rules that you could do whatever you wanted with. That's it. Like if D&D was a hardcore board game like Monopoly and you had to play Monopoly a certain way and you fucking couldn't do this or that with Monopoly, nobody gives a fucking shit about Monopoly.
Okay, but also, like, if that child takes a piece of paper and draws some lines on it and then rolls dice, and then his skylight gets kicked in with a SWAT team dropping down, you know what I mean? Like, because your concept that you're in your own head, the shit that you're thinking of is fucking owned by us. How fucking dare you? Yeah. Anyway, I imagine, like, people will, as we said earlier, be setting up mages of the beach, you know, and just going about their own way.
You are gonna see people say this comes out as is. You are going to see the absolute fucking bleeding edge of legal distinctiveness. You are going to see people try their hand at, like, man, just how close can you get?
Draw one of 20 cards.
Now we don't have cards, so we use what's called the random sphere of square sides.
Shake the magic 8 ball.
Sphere represent the card.
Shake the magic 8 ball and see what pops up. Yeah, like, or a spinner. Yeah, spin the wheel of 20 numbers and see what happens. Yeah. Wizards of the Coast has declined to comment on the leaked document. So, I guess we'll see what happens.
I fucking bet.
But you know what they are willing to comment on?
What's that?
The new live-action Dungeons and Dragons TV series in the works at Paramount Plus.
Nobody cares, dude. Dungeons and Dragons is a fucking... It's a set of ingredients. It's not a if they were adapting Forgotten Realms novels, yeah, okay, those are stories that exist.
Now, I know when you think of Dungeons and Dragons media, everybody is going straight back to that old cartoon with the creepy old man and the like the rotoscoping. But who remembers the fucking mid-aughts movie?
Oh, that thing is a piece of shit, dude. It's a total misunderstanding of Dungeons and Dragons. It's just like, we're gonna go fight all the enemies in the monster manual, and then it's like, who gives a shit? Who gives a fuck?
Like, What am I even accurate in saying mid-aughts? What year was it?
That was the 90s, man.
It
That
might
was
have been
definitely
the I might have been the 90s.
There's only one thing that I
Jeremy
don't know if I've said
Irons.
this before, but there's only one thing I want out of this D&D movie that I'm not going to watch. I want a main character to fucking die horribly. And then I want a similar character to show up for no reason, played by the same actor that just died. I think that
Right.
is the most I like I think that is
Marlon
the
Wayans. What?
I think that is the most appropriate D&D thing that could happen.
Yeah.
Beer Fest did that. Did you ever see Beer Fest?
No.
There's Beer Fest has this insane. First of all, that's a dumbass drinking bro movie. It's fine, but there's a guy named Landfill that dies by drowning in beer,
Mm-hmm.
and then 10 minutes later, his brother from Texas, Landfill 2, shows up, and it's the same actor, and then he takes the cowboy hat off and stops doing a Southern accent. It's like they literally just wanted to have a scene where the guy died in the beer, but didn't want the movie to change.
Yeah.
It's fucking hilarious.
That's great. That's a solid bit. Yeah. So, and of course the Paramount Plus was where the Halo TV show was also located, just in case anyone forgot. So, good stuff happening with D&D. Good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
Big excitement,
dude. Hey, what? Pathfinder is gonna fucking fight the shit out of them on this.
Is that the most popular derivative?
I'm not sure if it's the most popular, but it's definitely the one that's the closest to it. Okay. Pathfinder was a response to 3rd edition D&D by fucking Vorthoses that were like, no, we need every conceivable mechanic imaginable in this game, and then they made Pathfinder for Psychos.
And
was it 4th? Okay.
The part where they address Kickstarters too is like exactly going into the history of that, and like,
wait, Pathfinder's rules are free? Oh, well then fucking just move to fucking Pathfinder, idiots. We're like this shit is done.